So today's guest I met on a beach in Jamaica in January of this year. She's a retired law enforcement officer, a professor, and a coach to female law enforcement officers. She is the host of the Officer Autumn Show, where she dives into issues faced by women in law enforcement. After a very short blockchain conversation on the beach and an hour ride to the airport, I found out Autumn was from Maine. I found out her and her husband Adam were in law enforcement, and now she's a coach for women in law enforcement. She just left an impression on me that I felt I needed to know this young lady a little better. Then last week I saw a Facebook post that she had made, and I just felt it was so important to have her on my show because I have so many ex-players that are now in law enforcement. Megan Hart, Alexis Mason, Kimball Wesson, have many ex-students and players that are teachers and coaches, first responders, and I feel all of those are on the front lines. I just felt, I owed it to them to host Autumn and, just find out a little bit what you're about and might be able to help them in their journey that I imagine is only very difficult for a young woman. So let's get started. So Autumn, first of all, I know you have a passion for people and helping them in their life's journey. I just wanted to see if you could tell us a little bit about where you come from. I want to dive into where you got this passion for people. We have about an hour bus ride from our hotel in Jamaica to the airport. We had a chance to talk. And just in that 1 hour, I got from you that you care a ton about people. And so I would just like, I know that comes from somewhere. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. First off, thanks for having me on, Mike. I know the way we met is so funny, but I love it. Very random on the beach in Jamaica, but and you were reading your Bitcoin book and I was like, oh, somebody who's like me, let's talk. So, so that's how that happened.
Yes.
A little bit about me, just for anybody who's listening might be asking themselves, do I want to actually listen to this interview? So my name is Autumn. I've been a police officer since I've been 20 years old. When I was 26, I suffered a career-ending injury. I don't have a cool story. I wasn't in a fight. I wasn't in a shoot. I wasn't in a crash. I literally just have a back injury that took me off full-time patrol. My legs started going numb one day. Well, not one day. I dealt with that for like a whole year. And I was like having issues working out. So as a police officer, you always need to be able to be in like top physically fit condition, right? And so I wasn't. And so those things started leading me to go to my doctor. My doctor essentially, when he took x-rays and then an MRI, I have a herniated, torn, and degenerative disc all in my lowest back. The tear is what became very scary because we didn't know if that goes all the way through. We didn't know what would happen to me, if I'd lose use of my legs and all of the things. So I had to get off of working full time. And that was devastating for me. I was couch ridden for 6 months. I was unable to do anything. Standing for long periods of times became excruciating. Sitting, I couldn't sit because it would just kill my back. Had no support in my lower back. I was in therapy 5 days a week. I was halfway through my master's in criminal justice to get into the administration. So if that gives you any inkling as to where I thought I was going, and just like that, overnight, everything was done. It was just like that. And I didn't know if I was going to be the Walmart greeter or what I was going to do. And that was really hard for me, really scary. I think most people, we need to have purpose. We need to have a plan. We need to have focus. And I lost all that. And when we lose that, we as people, we get very messed up. And that's what happened to me. And from there, a gentleman by the name of Tony Robbins, I think you know him, Mike. I think we had a conversation about him.
Yes.
Tony Yeah, I found his YouTube videos, and my mother sent them to me because I was in a pretty dark depression and not getting out of bed and all the things. And Tony Robbins got me out of bed. And from there, I just said, you know what? I can't be the only person who's gone through something that has killed me. And, I want to help people overcome this. We have a very high rate of suicide in law enforcement. And I just felt like, holy shit, there's so many other cops that are just like me, and nobody's talking about it. And so from there, I started a podcast literally just to vent about it. Like, if you go on there, all you hear is me bitching the first 10 episodes. Like, it's just like raw. And I'm like, and then I stopped. And when I stopped, Mike, my email inboxes were flooded. They were like, what are you doing? Where have you been? It's been 2 weeks. When's the next podcast? Like, you can't stop. And from that point, I realized, holy cow, there are people that need this. So I just started a coaching practice. I started, I hired coaches. I've taken a ton of courses. I've invested thousands and thousands into my education as a business owner and as a coach. And I just took my training, education, and experience, which anybody can do. And I just started helping people. And that's where I am today.
Cool. Did you have any law enforcement background in your family that, what led you to want to be a police officer?
Well, I'm a second degree black belt in karate. And so I have been competing and going around and doing all this shit with a bunch of guys since I've been 5 years old. Okay. So I just thought I was always like that rough, tough girl. So keep that in the back of your head. The only influence in law enforcement I have was my sensei. He was a part-time police officer. And then I had an uncle who was a police chief, and I highly respected both of them. I was actually doing hair. I was doing hair in a salon, and over the weekend, quit on a Friday, enrolled into college for criminal justice on a Monday, because I just knew I always wanted to help people. And that comes from, I never had a role model. When I was growing up, all my role models let me down. They always let me down. And I just said, like, fuck, like, I just want to help people. Like, I just want to be there. Like, I want to be able to be that solid person for somebody who can just give, I'm not saying my advice is great, but I can say it's pretty sound. Like, I'm very consistent with what I have to say. And I'm like, I just want to be that for somebody. I just want to be a good person who other, younger people can look up to, who, is consistent for them, because I never had that.
That's interesting. You talk about your influences let you down. They always let you down. And that, I think we probably share that, not that mine let me down, but I've always tried to, it sounds conceited, I think sometimes, but I just try to be my own hero.
Yes.
I figure if I don't let me down, I'm probably not going to let most other people down, because I have such high expectations of my behavior and my actions. I think that was beautiful tying in there, and that same feeling. So when you were injured, you were forced into retirement, you said, and you didn't leave law enforcement. You dug in and you started coaching these other officers and folks that you felt were in the same position. So I think, I know, because I've been a coach myself, and I know it's very important to leave yourself vulnerable to those people that you're coaching, because sometimes we can be seen up here as a coach when we really see ourselves down here with the people. We see our people up here and we see us down here. I think that's what makes us good coaches. Seeing things in people they don't see. But I think leaving yourself vulnerable is very, very important. So, what are some ways, as a coach and as just a human in all your other relationships, how do you feel you leave yourself vulnerable?
One of the biggest things that I always have tried to do is I always try to be authentic. I think, especially in a day and age now where social media is overrun by Instagram models, everywhere. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in. Like for me, I'm focused on, first responders, right? Law enforcement. But it doesn't matter where you go. It could be in real estate. It could be in any kind of, we look at like cheerleading right now, like that's a really hot, big sport, thank you to Cheer on Netflix, right down in Texas or whatever. But like we look at all these different, social media, and we don't know what's real. We don't know what's real anymore. And we are as a society, we're just craving realness, because what we want to do is we want to be able to see ourselves and other people who are successful doing what we want to do. That's what people want. And I know that I can't stand the fake shit. And so for me, being vulnerable is actually being who I am. And that is, to, in my opinion, that is the most vulnerable a person can be, is just being you. Right. Yeah. And so, and I think you might've seen this, Mike, but so I've recently, come under fire. Like the internet blew up on me in March, because all of a sudden, like I was just pissing, like me being who I was, saying things that are not true about women in law enforcement, and some of the shit that we go through. It really offended a lot of people. And I mean, I have several profiles now on Instagram that are fake, that are made of me. And like, they just attack me. I mean, they were attacking everything from my looks physically, talking about my teeth, talking about how I look, right? And to my work, that I'm preying, my coaching is preying on female cops, because somehow we are weak, and we must be weak. And this girl's praying, and a woman can't make a decision for herself if she wants to buy a course or not, or follow a person. Right. So, the thing is that knocked me down. I won't lie. That took me a solid month to get over, because I was like, shit, most people would have packed up shop and been like, I'm out, peace, and I just felt like, you know what, that happened because that was my biggest fear, Mike. That was my biggest fear, is that people were going to, like, it's not that they were going to see me, but they were going to see me, and then they were going to like harass and bully me and pick on me. And it happened. And so I'm just like, all right, well, now we're over that. What's anybody going to say now that hasn't already been said, or that's not all over the internet? It's all there. Like, they're suggesting that I was never a cop. I wake up to messages daily about that I've screwed my chief, or I was this and I was that. I mean, it's comical now, but when somebody's going through that, that's excruciating.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're adults, and unfortunately it's happening to 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds that aren't prepared to handle it yet. And that's a big part of my mission is, to help younger people get through that, not comparing themselves to others and all of those things. It's such a big part of what I'm trying to do with my Success Never Rests and those things. Just be the best in the moment that you can be. It'll prepare you to be the best in the moment that you have to be the best. And I think you can probably relate to that through your injury, and how you handled that was somewhere down the line, you had been handling adversity on a regular basis, practicing it. And then when that real adversity hit, you were ready for it. And I agree with on the vulnerability. It's basically just being real. And it's not easy to be real in today's society, because like you said, there's somebody somewhere looking to chop you down, no matter what kind of good you're trying to do. So I commend you. It is a reason I reached out. I thought it was important to get you on here, was I did read that entire post, and it's just hard for me to believe that people want to pick on people trying to help. I don't get it. So, and
Mike, and if anybody's listening to this who might have gone through this, if you don't mind, I'd like to just give a little bit of advice here. Is anybody who is actually doing something in the world and is adding to the world is not going to shit on anybody else who's doing anything. Like, we don't have time. Like, really, truly successful people do not have time to do that. The second thing I want to tell you is you have to ask yourself what kind of state a person is in order to be bullying, harassing, giving you a bunch of shit. And that goes for if it's in the workplace, if it's like at school, if you're a younger person. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's on the internet. That person is in such a bad place. In like, I got to a point, it took me a month, but I got to a point where I was like, okay, I got to pray for these people, because seriously, I just don't have the time to do that. I couldn't even fathom doing that to somebody, because for me, it's pretty simple. I don't like something, block, or just keep scrolling. It's so simple. So you have to ask yourself like where they're at in their mind. They're in a really, really bad spot, you know? And the third thing I just want to say too is like, I believe our haters mirror to us what we are avoiding feeling, right? So the reason why it triggers us is because we're like, no, I don't want to feel that. Like I was so nervous that they, you know, who knows, like people were going to say that I was preying on, you know, because coaching, the whole industry is brand new. It's a new industry. And while I've been coaching for the last 8 years professionally, it's very new, especially in law enforcement. And law enforcement isn't exactly progressive. Like we're not really open to new concepts. So I've been climbing up a mountain. And so, yeah, that was a fear. And like my teeth, yes, I am like my teeth are not straight, like whatever, you know, but the point is they were just reflecting in me what I just hadn't like accepted about myself, if that makes sense. And so if anybody's listening to that, like just, I really hope you like listen to those 3 things and just that's how you overcome a bully and like somebody harassing you, is to take a look at yourself and be like, okay, you know, what can I like about myself versus trying to shove that away.
Yeah. So you think it bothers us because it's actually highlighting things we feel about ourselves that we haven't really just said it doesn't matter to ourselves yet.
100%. Because it's like this. If somebody tells you that you are ugly, but you actually don't believe it, you're like, okay. But when they tell you it and you believe it, what happens? Oh my goodness, he's right. I am ugly. Oh, my hair, my teeth, my face. Oh my God, why can't I be better? But if you're good with yourself, then what they're saying isn't gonna, you know, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I used to tell my teams, and you know, when people you would bust on you or whatever, is dogs don't chase parked cars, and you probably heard that too. So if the dogs are chasing us, we're probably doing something right. We're probably moving forward. We're probably disrupting something. So obviously you're doing something right. Thus you got dogs chasing your car that's moving.
I appreciate that. And like the last thing I want to say too, Mike, is like the internet has made everybody very too comfortable of just saying things without being worried about getting punched in the face. This is a lot of things that people say on the internet that they would never say to you in person. And just keep that in mind for anybody who's listening to that. Like, I'll tell you right now, if you know, some of us don't even have to be on social media, you know, so take that into consideration, like get off, like don't make yourself so available to these people. Like I'm only on social media for business. All of my social media is all business platforms. I am on Pinterest for my personal. I love to scroll and look at Pinterest. It's very relaxing for me.
Well, I mentioned earlier, I felt it was so important to have you on here. And, you know, when I did see your posts, you know, several weeks ago, you know, it reminded me that I've got several young women that I've coached in the past that are in law enforcement now. Megan Hart's a Texas Department of Public Safety, you know, highway patrolman. Alexis Mason, city police officer. Kimball Wesson's a city police officer. So it was very important to have you on here because I have young ladies that mean so much to me that were in your shoes and are going to be in your shoes for a while. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, you know, what are some key issues that females and women in law enforcement, you know, face daily that, you know, as a civilian, we don't really realize. Like we all know that every law enforcement officer puts their life on the line every single day, regardless of what department they're in. If you're in the smallest little city, or if you're in the biggest, when you put your uniform on and go to work, it was proven at our, Uvalde here in Texas at an elementary school. Like nobody probably planned on going to that little town as a law enforcement officer and facing what they faced that day. Anyway, I know females even face more issues. So I just wanted to see if you could touch on a few of those things that maybe as a civilian, we don't realize female officers are dealing with.
So the biggest thing I just want to say, and every woman in law enforcement will totally be able to relate to this, is that we're just constantly underestimated. And it's a societal thing. And it's also a cultural thing that I do believe is changing. I do want to say that, like, and I don't want anybody to say, like, I don't want anybody to think I'm like a woe is me, or us females will feel bad for us. No. We do not want that. We do not need that. It's just, we are constantly underestimated. So what does that mean? Well, it looks like this. When we go to the range with our firearms, a lot of men, men and women, like a lot of the other officers are going to look at the girl and be like, oh, she can't shoot for shit, or she may struggle. Or when it comes to defensive tactics, like she's not squared away, she doesn't have her stuff together, like she can't fight, she can't hold her own. Being looked at as highly emotional on the road. Like women, we tend to be emotional. I know that. I'm Italian. I'm as emotional as they come. On the road, when I put my uniform on, I had to just be a different person. Like you just have to, harness your emotions. And every officer has to. It's not just a woman thing. But like, that's another thing, is like, Autumn, she's going to come and like make this call worse because she's a female and she's emotional. And so you're just constantly underestimated. You're constantly having to prove yourself, which it's like that in more than just law enforcement. I mean, let's just be honest. It's,
Yeah.
and yeah, that mindset doesn't leave you. A funny thing that women have to worry about that men don't have to is going pee on shift. It's a big deal because we have, like, men, you don't have to sit down, you know what I mean, to go pee, whatever. But like women, like we have to find like a safe spot, because a lot of us are either taking our duty belts off, or whatever, like unbuttoning the belt, and like you don't want to be without your gun, and like it's just a lot. It's just I don't know. It's just, that's a lot to think about for a woman. It's not quick and like, oh, I'm gonna run into the gas station. It's like, no. I need to know the spots on my patrol that I can go to the bathroom and be safe.
Something I never thought of right there.
Mm-hmm.
But that does make perfect sense. Let's talk a little bit about relationships as well. I'm a big relationship guy. Obviously, we're talking, and we built a small little relationship basically in an hour on a bus to the airport.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel relationships are very, very important. I also feel they change often. I've even faced it. I've got, my best friend from high school is in law enforcement. I have cousins that are in law enforcement, and I've just seen relationships change. I know divorce is big in the law enforcement community. Can you just talk a little bit about, relationships? What you think as a coach is, the best way for, relationships in general in law enforcement to work?
So here's the thing. I'm going to say this is the whole reason. Okay. It comes down to the individual, but I'm going to teach you, I'm going to educate you a little bit on law enforcement. So law enforcement changes a person, and it has to, you have no choice. Okay. Like you are going to change because you come in and you are completely engulfed. Like it is, you think it's like a 5 days, 40 hours a week job. You are out of your friggin' mind. You are, and it's obsessive in the beginning because it's the coolest job on earth in the beginning. Okay. Because what other job are you going to all these hot calls? Are you going to people's houses? You are literally the superhero going and solving problems, and you are there, and you are the man, or you are the woman, and you're the one calling the shots. And like everyone, you show up on scene and everyone's looking up to you. And you get to meet all these, other officers who you just think are so cool. And like, you're just there, and like you're training, and you've got to train, and you've got to go to the academy, and you got to do all this stuff. It changes a person, because then you start to see the other side of the world Okay. That only the 3 to 5% of the population really, that's who we're dealing with, the 3 to 5% of the population that nobody wants to deal with. The majority of people don't see that, like that people, they're not seeing that part of the population. And so you start to change. The way that you look at the world changes and you go on defense. And that's just it. And people can say whatever they want, but that is the truth. We just go on defense. We're not going to go to certain restaurants. We're not going to go and hang around certain people. We're not going to have, we're not going to be around conversations that might be had that we feel like we don't want to have. And we are not going to put ourselves in bad situations. From there, so there's that, right? From there, though, then you start getting, you're in the job 3, 5, 7 years, and now you're feeling burned out. Now you're feeling the weight of the world on this job. Now, I just want to go back and I just want to say it is not abnormal for people to lose like their friends who are not cops, like 0 to 3, 4 years in the job, 0 to 3, 4 years. Every cop wants to just hang out with cops. They want to talk cops. They want to talk shop. They're cop. It's all they want to do. About year 5, they're like, all right, okay. And that's if, though, that person hasn't let the job overcome them. Okay. Because it does. And it ruins people. It does. And it's just the nature of the job. And this is why, like, there's a very famous book called The Emotional Survival of Law Enforcement. And he literally, it's a doctor. His name is Dr. Kevin Gilmartin. He breaks down, he was a police officer for 20 years. And he breaks down, Mike, why an officer feels the way that they feel and why they think every 0 to 3 years, here's what the officer's thinking. Okay, 3 to 5, here's what the officer's thinking. 5 to 7, and it's true. And because people think it's like they're alone in this journey, and it's not. It's literally just how it impacts. Now, how it impacts the person. Now, the person who can emotionally survive and detach from the job around year 5 is going to survive. They're going to survive. What does that mean? Well, the likelihood of them getting into a divorce is much less. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen. And I'm going to just tell you this, like, I used to look at divorce as like this really big taboo thing, but like I've coached a lot of clients through it. And I just want to say is like, law enforcement just changes the officer. It just does. It changes the person. It just does. And it doesn't mean anything about the spouse, like, isn't good enough or anything. It's just that your officer is just changed. It's different. And some people can work through it and others can't. And I know you talked that you had friends, I get it. Like, sometimes some people can handle it, like they can handle the job, and other people just can't. They can't stick with being who they are on the inside. Like, they change. Does that make sense? So that's like a whole big spiel. Did I answer your question? I had to say all that.
No, I mean, I get it that maintaining relationships outside of that career could become very difficult. Due to the things you see. My best friend that I was speaking of, his very first call was a suicide where the guy committed suicide right in front of him, and I've never seen that, and I'm never going to see that. So how do we relate? It's probably tough, to have conversations. And so I get it, but I also think it is so important for us to have relationships outside of our career. So that we're getting all these different views that maybe you would have better officer retention and not so much burnout. And that's probably in any career we get funneled into just hanging with our little tribe of people. So let's see, imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about that earlier. I heard you speaking to an officer on your show a little bit about imposter syndrome, and I had to be honest with you, I haven't heard that term before, but it sounded something very similar that I've dealt with, in education and in sales, because in education we can also, as a player in a sport, we can start, we want to do one thing, but something's holding us back from attempting it. So talk a little bit about imposter syndrome, and then we can kind of, tie it all into together later. But what is on the law enforcement side? What is imposter syndrome?
So imposter syndrome essentially is if you don't believe that you can actually do something, like you're not good enough to do whatever it is. So whether you are a police officer and like you have this voice in the back of your head telling you like you're not actually a cop, like it's imagine a time in your life where you're doing something or you're trying to do something, but like you don't actually feel like you are that person or you're capable of doing the thing because you just have this voice in your head, right? So that's what imposter syndrome is. And what it does is it prevents us from actually stepping into who we are and stepping into our greatness and doing whatever it is that we want to do. Imposter syndrome keeps us small.
Yeah.
And so I talk a lot about that because women in law enforcement, like they have a hard time because it's a male dominated career. And there's nothing wrong with that. It just is. It's just one of those things. It's like the military, women going to the military, right? Like that's another very male dominated career. It's hard. So what happens is and this is not, imposter syndrome is not just, it's not a gender thing. I'm just using my example because this is who I coach. That's it. Men face it all the time too. But like a woman would be an example that I deal with all the time is like, oh my God, like, can I actually do this? I can't do this job. Who am I to do this job? Who am I to be on the front lines? Who am I to put this uniform on? And it's like, well, you're a black belt and you can shoot your gun and you train all the time. Yeah, but I can't do it. Yeah, but you can do anything. Like you can do this. Like you have the skills to train. No, I can't do it. Right. So those are the conversations. It's like, no, I can't do it. Who am I? I'm not like him. I'm not like her. I don't look like this. I can't do it. And so imposter syndrome, again, it's just going to keep you from achieving your dream.
And I would think that limited belief probably leads to not as many going into the administration side, which was where you were headed, I believe, and some of those things. And like I was talking to you earlier in the business and sales side, I learned the term drunk monkey because it's the same thing. I can sit around and sell $400,000 houses year after year after year, or I can let my drunk monkey stop talking and I can go after $1 million listing. But I've got to get, I'm not ready to list $1 million home out of my head before I can do that. And it's the same thing,
100%.
You can't compare yourselves to others. You gotta, just look at what you can do. You did talk a little bit about, and I'd like for you to share, what you were sharing with that officer in the podcast, just a little bit about you were coaching her on, here's how you get over that so you can tell yourself, I'm ready for that. I think you would approach it the same way, whether you're a law enforcement officer, a male or a female, if you're a realtor, a teacher, whatever. 100%. So just, as a coach, what were some of those things you were telling her to, focus on to get over that?
Well, I don't really remember, but let me tell you what I would tell anybody.
Well, I'm sure that's what it was.
Yeah. So here's what I would tell anybody. First off, you have to know yourself. We have to know who we are. Okay. So like get very clear and write it down, because what happens, Mike, is we really get all in our heads and like we'll talk ourselves into we are pieces of shit and we deserve nothing. And like we all go there and it is easy. And it's we think, and I know you're really big on this, so I'm probably repeating myself, but I'm just going to say it. So the human mind, we think anywhere's between 70 to 90,000 thoughts a day. Okay. Well, guess what? We friggin' repeat 50 to 70,000 of those thoughts every day. So, and those thoughts turns into beliefs, because a belief is just a thought that you think over and over and over again. Okay. So your beliefs are simply your thoughts. That's it. So if we know that and we do not control our thoughts, then literally we are just out and just being free shaped, not thinking on purpose, not believing on purpose. So I want you to understand that first we have to really go back and figure out who we are. And then we have to decide who we are. Okay. So maybe I'm not great right now. Maybe I'm not in the shape that I want to be. I don't have the money I want to be. I don't have the career. I don't have the relationship. No problem. Not yet.
Yeah.
But you can decide right now that that's who you're going to be. So Then you have to go and look at whatever goal that you're like looking to achieve. And then you just have to break it down. Like, can I actually do it? Well, like, we have to be, and I hate using the term reasonable, right? But like, let's be honest. If I decided I was going to go be LeBron James, an incredible basketball player, I'm probably not going to be able to do that. Doesn't matter what I believe, right? But that's why I'm saying we have to know who we are. It's like, can you actually do the thing? Like, if you take the fear out, let's just get honest with ourselves. So I'm really big on looking at our thoughts and asking ourselves the truth. What's the actual truth? Like, can we do this? And if the answer is yes, then what you need to be doing is you need to be reframing your thoughts, reframing your beliefs constantly. And you need to become the witness of that. Okay. Because as you change your thoughts, as you change your beliefs, new opportunities are going to be opening up for you and you're going to see things differently. The key to life, in my opinion, is having the skill to be able to see things differently, because we literally are all so tunnel vision and we just think, okay, well, this is the way that it is, but it's not. There's so many different sides and so many different ways to look at things. And I think, in my opinion, that is the key. You change your thoughts, and then every day you just start doing little things and you start believing in yourself. And again, the believing in yourself, that's a thought. It's just a thought. It's like, I can do this. Okay, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. And you start doing that and every single day. And like, from there, what's going to happen is like inspired actions. You're going to get ideas. You're going to get the gut punches or, to do this thing. And from there is how you get out of imposter syndrome. Thinking, okay, well, I can't do it. And then telling yourself that you're going to just snap and do it. I don't really believe that gets us out of imposter syndrome, because if you don't change what got you there, which are your thoughts, how are you ever going to actually change? Right?
Okay. Yeah. No, I love it's basically a set of steps. And it'll work for anything. You first, like you said, you got to know yourself, know your skill set. And then if you don't have the skills to do what you want to do, you have to build those skills, which might mean training and watching the people you want to be. And then you slowly, I think, you believe in yourself, like you said, that leads to actions lead to results. So in all careers, we feel stuck at times. I'm quite sure law enforcement officers also at times are probably sitting in their patrol car and wondering, what the F am I doing here? I'm tired of this. I've got 20 more years till I can retire, or 15. Gosh, I can't do anything else. This is all I've ever known and all I've ever done. What advice do you give to your clients when, you're talking to them and you can just tell they've hit that wall? They don't know, what their next step in life is.
It's funny because I think this goes for everybody, right? And we talked about that too. It really applies to everybody. We are in such a day and age where there's so ample of opportunity and ample amounts of opportunity. But the biggest thing is you just have to understand what you bring to the table. I'm just a cop. It's all I've ever been. Well, let's break down like what you do. You're an excellent communicator, an excellent multitasker, right? You're trained in tactics. You de-escalate situations all the time. You are a leader, whether you are in a leadership position or you are not. And I mean, just those 5 skills, there's so many jobs and careers you could go into leading from that. But if it's the mindset of like, are we just going to have tunnel vision and this is it and this is all I'm ever going to do? Or are we going to look at things differently? And it's the same for anybody in any position, right? Like we talked about coaches or teachers and stuff. And it's like, but look at the skills that you have doing that profession, because the profession's great, but what really matters is the skills that you as a person, and it's different for everybody. It's different for everybody because we've all like within our careers, we've maybe focused on different things. We've gone down different avenues. So if you can just focus on the skills that you've actually acquired, you could really do anything from there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was listening to the young lady on your podcast. So much I don't know about law enforcement that I've learned by listening, but she was talking about how to introduce Miranda rights
Mhm.
during a traffic stop. And it just made me think of a sales call that I might have with a customer. I'm looking for their body language. I'm looking for their tone, and I'm trying to match it so that they feel comfortable. And to hear a traffic stop is going the exact same way as a sales call was eye-opening to me. So
Mhm.
it did make me think along the lines of teachers, how, law enforcement teachers, our skills are so transferable to so many other avenues. And as you
Absolutely.
said, I know law enforcement's not disappearing in the next 10 to 15 years, but jobs like mine as a real estate agent, mortgage officers, insurance salesmen, a lot of those jobs are going to be gone due to technology. But teachers, mentors, those folks are going to be here in 15 and 20 years. So you have plenty of skills as a law enforcement officer to move forward if that is not your calling anymore. And as we
Absolutely.
grow, I don't know, as we grow as humans,
Mhm.
our ideas change of what we, want to be and what we want to do. I'm 54. I'll probably be laying on my deathbed, and I'll probably be thinking about my next venture
Yeah,
that I want
me
to
too.
try to accomplish,
Yeah.
So speaking of that, not that we're going to be on our deathbeds anytime soon, but I do want to know what the future holds for you, Autumn. What do you see for yourself moving forward?
Well, Mike, I I want to reach as many women as possible. So and I just want to help empower them. So the next chapter of my life is continuing to grow the company. So we are now we've partnered with two experts in the industry. I have a firearms expert. He's a world class. He's a law enforcement officer. He's a Marine Corps veteran, and he does the competitive shooting, and so he's very good. And then I have a pro MMA fighter. She is a police officer, a woman, and she's a force to be reckoned with. And anyway, so I have this program that we partnered on doing, and it's doing good, and we're really helping empower females on all like mindset for me, and then firearms and combatives for them. And I feel like obviously cops benefit from it, but also just women. I mean, what woman doesn't want to know how to, protect herself with a firearm, physically have the mindset, the skills to go through it. So we're doing really well with that, but I really want to start stepping out onto some stages and doing some speaking and really empowering women to, just overcome the adversity, face it and overcome it, and not allow the imposter syndrome to overcome and take them. Because if we do, then we're going to stay stuck. So that's my goal.
Well, I think anytime we're putting our lives out there to help and grow others people's lives, I think that's the ultimate calling. Personally, I believe we'll get whatever we want out of life if we can help as many other people get what they want, and we'll
So
get
true.
everything we want. So, well, I've enjoyed having you. It's been awesome catching up
Thank you
and
for
learning
having me.
more about you. Hopefully we can get together again
Yeah.
sometime. So anything you want to add before we get off here?
Well, just if anybody's on Instagram, you can find me on at Officer Autumn. I'm pretty big there. I'm at Officer Autumn on TikTok. I'm big there. And I have a podcast called The Officer Autumn Show. So if you're on those platforms, come and hang out, say hi, let me know that you were here and that Mike, so we can catch up.
We'll get all of those links on here. I'll get it all in the descriptions and everything. So
Cool.
um,
Appreciate that.
anyway, appreciate it.
Yeah.
And we will talk to you soon.